We are in Beersheba, at the southern border of the nice area of Israel. You can see maybe a little bit from here that the green sort of fades out, and the horizon is modern day Beersheba, and it goes into the desert area where you don't have any water. So we're really here at the edge of the desert. And this place is so important because one of the most important characters of the Bible lived here.
Really special thing about this place is that it's connected with the story of Abraham, the story of the founding father of the Jewish people, and that he was on his travels from the Mesopotamian area to the land of Israel. He moved back and forth living as a nomad, and we see in the background even modern day nomad camps. So this is still an area where a lot of Bedouins live a kind of half nomadic life.
Abraham, the founder, the father of Judaism in many respects, he lived here. He came here from Mesopotamia, that is modern day Iraq, because God told him he would give him all this land. This land was promised to him, and he was supposed to be and to become a blessing to the people and to this land.
Abraham was on his way to this promised land. He also settled for sometimes here in Beersheba, and some stories in the book of Genesis are connected with Abraham staying here, so that he get a feeling that God really fulfills his promises to him, that he will give him a land. Although Abraham never possessed really land here in this country as long as he lived, besides the burial place of his wife Sarah, which is in Hebron, which is in a way up the hills in this direction, about 40 kilometers behind us.
The name Beersheba actually comes from Abraham himself. This name was given to this city and this city by Abraham.
So Beersheba means Be'er means well or spring, and that means it's an area where there's a lot of water, and Sheva can be connected with a Hebrew number of 7, or can be connected with to swear an oath. And both stories have a connection in the book of Genesis with Abraham.
It means well of swearing or well of 7, because in this place he actually, in a sense, received some of this land unto himself, which he only had to this point been a promise. And what happened, somewhere in this area he dug a well, and the people who lived here, the Philistines, they got in a dispute over the well and over the water he took. And he came to an arrangement with them where he was actually allowed to, in a sense, receive the water, receive the blessing, receive the nourishment from this land which God has promised to him right here.
This is surely a later adaptation, or giving this place a name which has this kind of biblical origin, and then they try to arrange a meeting or to find a meaning for the name.
So Abraham and Abimelech, that is the leader of the place, basically the land, which at this point is not owned by Abraham, it's owned by these other people, and the leader of the other people, the Philistines, is Abimelech. And they both meet and they basically make this deal, this agreement. Then Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. Abimelech said to Abraham, "What do these 7 ewe lambs mean which you have set by themselves?" He said, "You shall take these 7 ewe lambs from my hands, so that it may be a witness to me that I dug this well, so that the water is his." Therefore he called the place Beersheba, because the 2 of them took an oath. So they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech and his commander arose and they returned to where they live. So basically they left Abraham alone by himself and his clan. He's a nomad, his people, his flock by himself, and didn't bother anymore with him, because they probably were a little bit concerned about this rather large trust of people at the border of the territory. For Abraham, this was a sign. He's naming places in the land. This is in a sense a token that God gives him that he is now in the land. And he has not gotten it by fighting over it or by blackmail in any way. He has gotten it, and God in a sense blesses him through it now. Right? He receives of that nourishment, the water. And if you look at this place, it's January right now, so it rained a little bit, so you can see a little bit of green. But the rest of the year, this is a desert. So water is crucial. So God sustains him in the place which God has promised him.
Abraham, well, pretty much Abraham's the start of the whole story, if you're going back to obviously Adam for Genesis, but people often think Genesis 1 to 11 are sort of, some people consider them maybe mythical, if you like, but Genesis 12 is where everything zooms down to a historical beginning. So Abraham's your first character there. But like I was saying, he's a nomad, so he starts off being a wanderer. But the key thing is he's wandering with a purpose, if you like, because he's had this promise. So Genesis 12, a key promise. He's been promised this land, so to be blessed, but in particular to inherit this land of Israel. Right where we are now, in fact, is the southernmost part, so all the way down to here. But throughout his life, he's faithful, so we have some key episodes that show his faith. So, for example, where God tells him to bind his son Isaac in order to sacrifice him. And Abraham goes along with this, despite this being his son, takes him up to the mount to be sacrificed, which is now regarded as the Temple Mount. And God then says, no, you don't have to go through this. But his faith has been shown. So Abraham's the first man of faith, and well, his faith is rewarded because the promise is fulfilled, if you like. Israel do inherit the land.
So this man Abraham and his sons, his family, out of which then Judaism would come, and then backed on that Christianity, he is in a sense the one man that God chose to work through and work with. And he was the man that that believed God, and that's why he's such a big deal. He is, in a sense, the monument of faith, what it means to be a believer. He believes God, although he doesn't see it necessarily. And right now, God promises him a land, and in the end, he sort of lives at the edge of it. He lives in the desert place, but it is, it's not fully realized. So he is, in a sense, this place is a depiction of that. You're sort of on the edge of it. You're having part of it, but you're not fully in it yet.
Even there are this connection with Abraham, it's not seen as a specific holy site. So there is no memorial here. The holy place connected with Abraham is indeed the burial ground in Hebron, the place which is mentioned that Abraham bought for his wife, and then he was buried there himself and his sons. So the patriarchs and matriarchs of Judaism are buried in Hebron. We are looking at one of the famous water systems which the Israelites in the time of the kings of old built in many of their cities. So this is one example. There are some others around the country. So we are at the lowest spot of the whole tell, and that means they collected here all the rainwater, and this is in a way a collecting water system. When we go down here, the steps, this was the steps the people have to go down to fetch the water, and then there's an opening down here, and this leads to a huge underground cistern which was fed by rainwater and also by some of the water coming from the wadis during the rainy season. So a mixture between rainwater and wadi water, and this was stored here inside the city, access only from the city, and allowed the people to be relatively autark in a time of siege and to have a lot of water inside the city. So water here in the south of Israel where it's dry and you have only about 10 rainy days a year to collect and store water is everything. And so the metaphorical use of water in the Bible is always understandable in a place where you really need water to survive. It's very hard for us in Europe to appreciate what water means, but if you spend a day here without enough water, then you know how important water is and that water is associated with life.